What on earth is going on here? Elon Musk and Donald Trump are having a very public feud. Seriously, they're acting like a scorned ex-girlfriend. It's just so crazy. And what happened here again, most of it went down last night. It's just too funny. We have to talk about it. And in this video, I'll also explain what it ultimately led to and why that's actually a good thing. Trust me guys, after this video, you'll understand why it's a good thing. Let me give you a quick summary of the whole situation. It all started 3 days ago, when Musk criticized Donald Trump's legislative proposal, the One Big Beautiful Bill, for the first time, and then things slowly started to heat up. Since then, tensions have been building, and yesterday the situation completely escalated. Donald Trump accused Elon Musk of suddenly starting to criticize him, just because electric cars aren't getting the subsidies in the US that Musk would like to have. So, in the end, Musk didn't get the positive things he wanted. Accordingly, Musk is now criticizing Trump, but now Musk has really taken it up a notch, saying that Trump is also involved in the Epstein files. And that's why Trump doesn't want these files to be released. And to be honest, it's been known for years that Donald Trump was also quite close with Epstein and so on. But honestly, there's no point in getting hung up on that now. Pretty much every powerful person in the US is involved in that. That's why, in my opinion, it's really nothing new. But something bigger was brought up here, especially because Elon Musk has now announced it publicly, of course. And with that, I have to be honest, the whole thing is probably over. I don't think these two guys are going to be good friends anymore. At least that's how it looks right now. Because at first I thought, okay, this could also be a bit fake. They're just hyping things up a little, and after 2 or 3 weeks, everything will be cool again. But then it really escalated, especially with the Epstein files. Everyone knows that's just such a bloody topic that people usually avoid in public, but Musk just brought it up. He didn't care at all. So I think those two guys won't be friends anymore, because everything escalated so much yesterday, the markets went down as well, of course. Tesla realized over $100 billion in losses. I think they lost 14% in a single day, which is really crazy for such a huge company. And of course, our crypto market also dropped. Yesterday, we fell down to $100, and now I'll explain to you why that's actually a good thing. So what exactly happened yesterday? We had massive liquidity here. That liquidity finally got taken out yesterday. The market makers took advantage of that yesterday. The market makers saw, hey, there's a beef between Musk and Trump on Twitter. Accordingly, they deliberately pushed the prices down. People also panicked in parts, sold off, and so on. A lot of liquidity was taken out here. In total, almost $1 billion in long positions were liquidated yesterday alone. So an excessive amount of money was liquidated again yesterday, just like it always is. And that was purely a market maker game. Since then, we've been rising nicely again. Nevertheless, what happened here yesterday is actually very positive, and I'll explain why now. Because since yesterday, the funding rate has turned negative, and that's really good. We can see this very clearly again here on the weekly chart. Every time we overheat here, the funding rate rises sharply, and the higher the funding rate is, the more aggressively the market makers have to intervene and push the price down. It was exactly the same during the last major uptrend. The funding rate has increased again significantly. Now, if we switch to the daily chart, we can see that just because of this dump, we've slipped into negative territory with the funding rate, which is incredibly positive. I mean, we're currently back at $103,000, and yet the funding rate is still negative. Nothing better could have happened to us. This is extremely positive, and it's important to understand that, because when the funding rate is this low, we have room again for the next bigger breakout. Especially since we can also see here on the liquidation heat map that more capital is positioned around $106,000, $107,000, and $108,000. I tend to think that we will reach those levels again in the near future, because to the downside, there really isn't much liquidity, and the market makers will definitely want to get the money up here. You can also see this with the premium indicator. The premium indicator always shows us when we're in a small phase of euphoria, and the higher we go here, the more risk tolerant people become. That's also what slowed down the last upward trend. Currently, we can see that we've gone quite low here, and that's very good. These two things indicate that we definitely still have room to move up, because we're nowhere near the overheated zone yet, especially because the funding rate has dropped so far into the negative. We've now cleared out the market and once again have potential for the next upward trend. Just take a look at this entire bull run this time. It's completely different from the past. In the past, it would go up, make some really big percentage gains, and that was it. This time, the bull run started earlier, both in terms of timing and data. This upward trend actually started way too early. The fact that we've already broken through the all-time high was way too soon, but look at how we're climbing in steps. Here, a correction, then an upward trend, then another correction. Now the next upward trend is coming. That's how we're rising in this bull run. This bull run is different in this respect, because in the past we just shot straight up. Here we're climbing step by step by step, but this step-by-step climb only works if we keep pushing the funding rate down each time, if we flush out the retail investors here, if we clean up the market here. And because we're cleaning up the market and all of this is happening over a longer period, we've ultimately set much higher long-term price targets. As a result, we can climb much higher in the long term here, because if we had seen this onward trend all at once, without these long correction phases, there would have been so much selling pressure that we would have dropped straight down to 40,000. But that didn't happen because we corrected step by step here, had sideways phases, and didn't overheat too much all at once. That's why, as I said, this is definitely positive, and now we have potential again for the next upward trend. Especially when we look at the Bitcoin price in relation to the M2 money supply. With the M2 money supply, we had a correction at exactly the same time. We've probably seen that now, but after that there was also a nice upward trend. According to the M2 money supply, we will continue to rise sharply in the coming weeks, and $120,000 to $130,000 in the next few weeks is not unrealistic because we are simply continuing to follow the M2 money supply here, and we are still completely intact, which is actually very, very positive. Just as we are currently seeing, the whales are accumulating again very diligently. Up here in the very short term, we saw that there were a few larger whales who sold a bit of Bitcoin, but now everyone is back on a buying spree. All the whales who hold more than 10 Bitcoins are diligently accumulating again. That's really positive again, and it's also nice to see because in the end, what happened yesterday? The small retailers were flushed out while the big players continued to accumulate. And yesterday in the video, I talked with you about how the US has to intervene soon. They have to change something here. I showed you that yesterday. Either they have to lower interest rates, buy government bonds, or print money, because otherwise it just won't work anymore. And as luck would have it, today the news came out that the US has, for the first time in history, bought back $10 billion worth of government bonds. And that's exactly what I showed you yesterday, and today it's already happened. That's huge, and you really need to understand why all of this is happening. They're doing this to lower government bond yields, because the US has to refinance $9 trillion this year. Ultimately, that's a good thing. They can only do this because the US M2 money supply is also increasing. That means they're buying government bonds and already printing money in the background. The only thing that hasn't happened yet is that they haven't lowered interest rates, but I think we'll gradually see that in the coming months as well. And ultimately, that's positive because it boosts the markets. Fresh money stimulates the markets, and when they buy back government bonds, it also gives the economy a bit more security, making people a bit more willing to take risks and more likely to shift their money into other assets like cryptocurrencies or stocks. And 2 days ago, this news came out. JP Morgan is now giving loans to people or other banks and so on if they can provide their money as collateral in the form of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. And that's the big deal about it. People can now take out loans simply by showing that they have a certain amount of Bitcoin in their wallet, and these Bitcoins are used as collateral. The advantage is that people no longer have to sell their Bitcoins, and the whole thing can inflate even more as a result. This bubble can become much more gigantic because of this. By the way, JP Morgan is the largest bank in the world. It's absolutely huge that they're now moving in this direction. Absolutely brilliant, and it gives us a huge boost. And that's also what I've shown you several times over the past few months. More and more companies are coming here buying Bitcoins, and many are slowly starting to do the same thing as MicroStrategy. Over 60 companies already own Bitcoins here, and as I said, many of them are simply taking out huge loans, buying Bitcoin, and thereby increasing their company value. Absolutely incredible. And this is inflating the Bitcoin bubble even further. And according to rumors, we will see the Ethereum staking ETF within the next 14 days. That would also be really great to see. If we do see that, you can definitely say with certainty that Ethereum will rise significantly more, because with the Ethereum staking ETF, we have the advantage that people buy the ETF and in some cases get up to 5% returns per year. And institutional investors in particular won't want to miss out on that. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this little update video today. I actually didn't plan on making an update video, but because of the current market situation, because of Trump and Elon Musk, I just had to make a video today. So please leave a like, feel free to leave a comment, and see you next time, friend. Bye.